Okay, so we are live on both Telegram and YouTube. Invite you to join the Telegram channel, which is in the description. This is not that anyone's here yet. Uh, because of circumstances outside of my control, I'm starting this a little bit later in the evening than I wanted to. So this will be a little bit shorter, which is probably okay. I mean, I think it'll be shorter. We'll find out. But what I'm going to do right now is I am going to go and see if I can put this on Twitter/X Spaces. I don't know. Maybe it won't let me now that I'm not premium. You know what? I bet it won't. Let's see here. Everyone, no, it might let me. Okay, what do you want to talk about? What should we call it? I'm going to talk about population control and the administrative state. I don't know. I think there probably could be some better things. So let's see here. And we'll record it just to see how it goes. So hopefully when I have this going, it's going to be okay. Let's see here. Anyone can join. Add up to 10 speakers. Your space. Got it. Okay. Only the speakers. Yeah. So hopefully, okay. So it looks like it's working here. Okay, so I am transmitting on 3 different locations here. I am on X, Telegram, and YouTube simultaneously. Looks like X doesn't have video, only audio. I'm not sure that I really care about that. I'm just curious about. We'll just let it run here. Okay, so this was a little bit of an experiment. So last week I got on, and it had been a year-long break, and there's a lot of reasons for why I had that break. The Biden economy was certainly one of them. It's been a pretty difficult year for a lot of different reasons related to that. But a lot has happened too. And if you follow my channel on YouTube, you know that I'm not a full blown prepper, but a semi prepper. So with what happened on October 7th in Israel, that obviously caught my attention, and of course the continual escalation in the Ukraine and Russia. But we're not going to talk about that. Although I did predict that, and there are predictions that unfortunately are still to come true, which might probably will come true, namely American boots on the ground in Ukraine. I mean, we're going in that direction, and I would say if Kamala Harris wins the election, quote, wins the election, that will probably exactly be what happens. And at any rate, I'm not going to get into too many. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. I want to stay on my topic here. But let's see here. Just a couple of things here. Um, I have dabbled in crypto over this last year, and I plan on um, uh, taking some time to evaluate, analyze, and recommend or not recommend certain crypto currencies or personalities based on the year of experience that I've had playing with that. But one of the things that I continue to tell people about is Kinesis. I see that my little screenshot does not actually give the website there. Well, it's kinesis.money, and the link is in the description, with the referral link, that is. And what I like about it is they have tied their their digital gold token to actual physical gold and silver as well. And you can actually take possession of the gold and silver, which is, I mean, that's huge in my opinion, and sets it apart from a lot of the other crypto things that are out there. But I will definitely be talking about that more, and I do have a full review in one of my previous um, videos. So, what we're going to talk about today, though, more briefly than I wanted to. It's midnight. I actually planned on doing this at 11, almost more than an hour ago, actually, and something came up, and I was not able to. So, instead, what we're going to do is kind of briefly touch on something that is part of what separates me from others, and not that there aren't others that are interested in the same things that me. There really are, and I think that thanks to COVID, that a lot of people have woken up to some of the underlying factors that are going on out there. But there are still a lot of people who are asleep, I'm afraid. And this is not necessarily a um, what I'm going to cover today is not necessarily a right wing conservative or libertarian perspective exclusively. It's something that, in theory, at least, if you're a left winger, um, in theory, at least, if you genuinely believe in the principles that you say you believe, are the kinds of things that trouble you and bother you. And namely, it's the fact that people generations ago have co-opted the institutions, put their imprint on um, what they wanted those, what kind of people they wanted those institutions to produce, and then they started the machine and left, basically. And by left, I mean eventually they died. But the machine was started. The machine is in motion, and we've basically inherited the worldview of people who were alive in the 50s and the 60s, who embedded their viewpoints and their perspectives in various institutions, unfortunately, very deeply, in the school system, in the colleges, and definitely, obviously, in governments as well. And what that means, like I keep saying, like I said, if you're liberal, you should. Maybe I shouldn't use the word liberal. If you're a left winger, this kind of putting your thumb on the scale in the institutions should be something that you don't like very much. So we shall see. Now, how to do this briefly. So one of the problems with this is that there's when I was preparing for this today, there's just so much material. And if you're at all interested in figuring out exactly how the previous generations have have put their fingers on the scale, the thumb on the scales. Uh, all you need is just 1 ounce of curiosity, and you will uncover loads of stuff. But what I have here, just to start with, um, the the video description talks about Julian Huxley, but this is actually a quote from a speech by Aldous Huxley, and I actually have it prepped here. There it is. You can. This is what this quote comes from. But I'm going to start with this. In this speech, he says, "It seems to me that the nature of the ultimate revolution with which we are now faced is precisely this: that we are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy, who have always existed and presumably will always exist, to get people to love their servitude." So this is 1962, Berkeley um, University, obviously, right? And he's not necessarily condoning this so much as putting forward the view that this is just the way things are. And he has a lot to say about this. But what what I'm really kind of going for here is to give you a taste of the idea that the people of the 50s and 60s knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that they by virtue of the giant administrative state that had been erected thanks to FDR, and which continued under Eisenhower and Truman, and I mean, no one really slowed it down. It's never really slowed down. It's always gotten bigger and bigger. Um, that they had new tools available for them, and it was in this period that they began talking about the technocracies and technocrats. And the technocrat basically is someone who believes that they know more than you and they are more equipped than you to make life and death decisions for you. Um, I hate these people. they're, they're generally not very smart. They're not as smart as you think they are, but they're progressives um, in their mentality, in the sense that they believe that uh, with the guiding hand of their expertise, which they received with their gender studies degree or whatnot, that they're able to guide society into ever increasing levels of utopia. This is sort of the oligarchy. And so, I mean, do you know what an oligarchy is? It's basically a small group of people. It's not a democracy. It's it's like 10 people or 100 people deciding how the rest of us shall live. And our bureaucracies are just loaded with people like this, because that's where people who have these viewpoints will go. Like if you just want to be left alone, you don't become part of a federal bureaucracy. If you want to perfect society, then you're not going to go live on a farm somewhere and try to be self-sufficient. No, what you're going to do is you're going to seek an occupation that allows you access to as many levers of power as you can get. That'll be a bureaucracy, it could be the media, maybe a college professorship type thing, but usually a federal or government bureaucracy somewhere. Um, and then the oligarchs go and they meet with each other and they decide only amongst themselves how the rest of us are going to live, so on and so forth. And they just do things, and they don't tell us why they did them. They don't try to justify themselves. They don't ask for permission, and they certainly never apologize when things go to shit, which um, very often does, because, like I said, they're not as smart as they think they are. So The goal, which was well understood in the from we'll say the progressive era onto around 1970 by the technocrats, was exactly as Aldous Huxley here presents. Um, to find a way to get people to love their servitude. And why? Well, he explains why. Let's go back. Just why not? Because I can. Let's see here. I mean, you can find this yourself, but here we go. Yeah, kind of reading between the lines here. He says, how do you how do you do this? Well, your one of your options is terrorism, right? And then the second paragraph, um, if but it, you can do that, but if you're going to control them for any length of time, what you have to do is you have to get some measure of consent. Sooner or later, you have to bring in an element of persuasion, an element of getting people to consent what is happening to them. Oh my goodness gracious! I just cannot even tell you how how sick that sentiment even makes me. Um, so so what I want you to contemplate here is the possibility that that you are living within a worldview, a perspective. Um, I'm not even sure how to put this. That your belief system has been shaped by people who have been dead for possibly decades. Aldous Huxley, he died in 75, I think. So that was a long time ago. And like I said, he's not necessarily advocating for this stuff as much as just describing it. But you can read the speech for yourself. Um, but they set things in motion, and before you were born, probably, and now you are living with them. And so, unless you are alert to their worldviews and their attitudes, um, you're not going to be in a position to critically analyze them. And so, yeah, you will consent to what is happening to you. Is it really what you want? I are you sure, or is it what they've conditioned you to want? That is the question. And if you're going to be a philosopher king, which is what this channel is all about, then those are the kinds of questions that you need to ask. And as I said, I'm not going to get too deep into it because it is getting a little bit late for me anyway. But let's go on to the a couple of other quotes here. Let's see if I can find something from uh, maybe I'll end on Julian Huxley. Let's see if I have. I should have a quote here that I think explains very well exactly the kind of manipulation I'm talking about. Yep, I have it here. Just make sure this is the best quote here. Yeah, so okay, all right. Getting it ready. Almost got it. Okay. So I don't have time to go into the background on all these things. Suffice it to say, this is the kind of stuff that I study, and I have a lot more to say about it. But it is what it is. So this is from 1940, as you can see. This is a speech given by a Colonel Reese, a British guy, I believe, at the annual meeting of the National Council for Mental Hygiene. Note the year 1940. So this is before the Holocaust has become uh, the thing that it became. And I just don't want to get in it. I'm not going to go too in depth to it, but I want you to see. Okay, so we got some things bolded here. So basically, this is a eugenics viewpoint, much like what we might expect out of the Nazis, right? Except for it's not the Nazis, it's Americans and British people. And if you haven't discovered this yet, but uh, hate to tell you, but the Nazis got a lot of their ideas from Americans, in particular from progressives. And sorry, but that's just the way it is. And the after the Holocaust became a thing, a lot of these people backpedaled on being so overt. But here, even in 1940, this guy tells you what how they're going to proceed um, to improve things from the national point of view. And mental hygiene was not quite synonymous with racial hygiene, which is an explicitly obviously that's how if you've studied anything with uh, the Nazis, that was kind of one of the phrases that they had. But mental hygiene was really in the same um, category in terms of under everything was biological, right? Um, and so whether it was the mind, which according to them, the mind was the brain, and the brain is just matter, and matter is hereditary, or the body is hereditary. So even our mental health is hereditary. So this is all. So it's hard to believe this, and I'm going to show you in a minute a website that does a pretty good job of documenting this. But even like psychiatry was heavily laden with this eugenics mindset, which had a more or less biologic uh, basis for um, even our mental lives. And the national point of view is a loaded phrase here, believe it or not, because this is really like a reference to the social body. It's like viewing humanity as an organism, much like you might view bees as an organism, and just like bees have their own sort of moral hierarchy in the hive, so do humans, and the human hive has different rules that it must be concerned about, and the human hive can make moral decisions that would disgust us at an individual level. So, for example, at a national level, they might decide they need to throw Jews in ovens, that sort of thing. Not that Reese is wanting to do this, and like I said, in 1940, he had only some. I don't know from research what he knew, but I know that in general we knew that the Germans they had the Hereditary and Sterilization Act 33, I believe. That's not the name, but that gives you the idea. They had the T4 project. which they kind of kept their wraps on. But the Nazis had already kind of begun the process of stinking up the grand plans of these progressives. So when it talks about mental hygiene, it's not just talking about mental health. It's talking about um, it's sort of the a eugenics outlook, but in relation to people's mental health. If you can get your hands around that idea, and he knows this is where I'm going with this. He knows that even in 1940, this even before the Holocaust is a thing, even before the outrage that would come after finding out what had happened in Germany, he knew that people were going to be repulsed by these oligarchs, essentially these experts, these elites, deciding who was healthy and what they're going to do about it. So that's what that in this second paragraph here. Um, Actually, let's start with the third paragraph. Especially since the last World War. Now that's World War One. That's not World War Two. It's World War One. Especially since the last World War, we have done much to infiltrate the various social organizations throughout the country. So is he's not talking about something that he thinks that people are going to receive willingly. And then he says they need to permeate every educational activity in their national life, primary, secondary, university, and technical education. And basically, um, every person who every institution that transmit information and knowledge and worldview formation needs to be an area where these mental hygienists are involved. So scrolling down a little bit, um, look at his language. Similarly, we have made a useful attack upon a number of professions. The two easiest of them are the teaching profession. Think about that, and the church. Whereas the law and the medicine were the hardest. That has changed. Now the church stands opposed to much of this, but the law and medicine and the teaching profession are all and they're all in on this. So you need to think about that. I mean, he's talking about infiltrating all these institutions in the 1940s and using that position to transmit their viewpoints to the next generation. So just think about it then. So if they succeeded in this in 1940, let's give them a little bit of lead time. Let's say that it took 10 years for them to pull it off. By 1950, they were promoting their viewpoints in the colleges and the schools or whatnot. So that's a generation of individuals who would have absorbed the viewpoints of people like this without knowing the underlying ideology that they had from, say, 1950 to 1970. And those people would have just been like, oh, well, this is just the way things are. Obviously, it must be true. My teachers say so. This is what we learned in law class, and when as far as medicine goes, my doctor talks about this. So you get to 1970, and now those people, the people who received this in the 50s through the 70s, say, they become then the next generation of teachers and doctors and lawyers, and that brings us to, well, now, just about right. And so these people received a worldview that was transmitted to them by people who were basically eugenicists of different sorts. But basically, they had a reductionist view of humanity, and they transmitted their ideas to all the doctors and the teachers and the lawyers and so on and so forth, of about a 20-year period, maybe 30 years. Um, and now those people are transmitting their ideas through the same mechanisms, through the same um, institutions to us. If you're my age, which is between 45 and 55, that you would have received this ideology. And unless you have figured it out that that people have that people in the past made an actual plan to transmit their ideas without even anyone knowing, then you are your views yours? Are your attitudes yours? I mean, how confident are you that what you believe is what you believe based on actual independent evidence and not actually what has been given to you by a bunch of people who were racists of various kinds in the 40s and 50s? Think about that. And I mean, look at this next paragraph here. Like I said, this guy knows that what he's talking about is something that many people will find offensive. He says, if we are to infiltrate the professional and social activities of other people, we have to imitate the totalitarians and organize some kind of fifth column activity. If better ideas on mental health are to progress, and again, remember there are racial overtones. Well, we would perceive today's to be racial overtones, at least, to these things. We as a salesman will lose our identity. So he says, let us all therefore very secretly be fifth columnists. Well, a fifth column is like a secret military regiment that's sort of embedded within your enemy's space. So kind of like guerrilla warfare type people. So he knows what he's doing is something that the British people will find offensive. And this is even before the Holocaust has become a stench in the nostril of all humanity. So if I were you, I would consider that to be a warning bell. So I found a very nice site that does a pretty good job of putting into a nice list some resource points for you. And here it is for you. And I think it's pretty well done. Actually, I did not take the time to um, vet this site. I don't know anything about them, but their timeline is good. And this may not uh, you may not realize just how much psychiatry was biologically based for so long. And I bet you, if you go to your local psychiatrist today, he doesn't know any of this stuff. But if you fast forward here to 1940, here we go. Yep. Here you go. Yeah, they're on the list, and if you go through this, and you find out how many of these people who perpetuated the Holocaust were psychiatrists, you will find it eye opening. So don't think that I mean, I'm saying all this because you think mental hygiene, you think mental health, and who could be against anything against, who could be against mental health, right? Um, that's not how this got started. And these institutions were not built by people who had that viewpoint. They were built by people who had a biological basis. And unless someone has decidedly de- has very intentionally, we'll say, gone back and looked at the sources of their viewpoints and the institutions and the organizations that they basically have received, they're never going to know this stuff. This is really a really good outline, and I can independently verify quite a few of the points that are on this. So, like, for example, just look at this sentence. Let's see if I can zoom it out so you can see a little bit better. So there you kind of have everything all together. Germany, of course, psychiatry, mental hygiene, and eugenics. So, yeah, at least in the past, they are all considered connected. So, how do you know that they're not connected now? So, okay, I wanted to talk about Julian Huxley. And I see that this has already gone 35 minutes. Oh boy. Let's at least say something about Julian. Let me just find something here real quick. Good old Julian Huxley. Because what I wanted to spend a lot of time talking about, actually, no, let's try. Let's see if I can find this quote. I have a better quote but it's by somebody who's not Julian Huxley. I'm just getting the quote here. Okay. I have it here. Oh, let's see. This is from one. Now, do you know who Julian Huxley is? I guess that's kind of maybe the next question. Let me get back to my. Here we go. And actually, let's just let's check Twitter Spaces. Nobody there yet. Let me check the Telegram channel. Nobody there yet. Okay, that's fine. Quite all right. So Julian Huxley, you when I led this off with a quote from Aldous Huxley, whom you'll know from Brave New World, and I actually can't remember how Julian is related to Aldous. Cousins, I believe. But descended from the late Thomas Huxley, otherwise known as Darwin's bulldog, and uh, boy, I don't want to take this too long, but basically, to yes, he as is stated here. Um, this is a good summary of what's going on here. What Julian Huxley is advocating for: the need to transform education into an evolutionary mechanism. He believed that humans needed to take charge of the evolutionary processes. Um, and he advocated for something which essentially many people know as social Darwinism. there's really an absurd and even stupid viewpoint that right wing people are the ones that were in favor of, quote, social Darwinism. No, it was left wing progressives, and unwittingly, they still do. I mean, these people are not the brightest people. If you're progressive, you need to get your head out of your butt and you need to find out who gave you the ideas that you've got, because you will be probably disgusted by what you discover. At any rate, um, social Darwinism essentially accepts the idea that people are not created equal. In fact, everyone's evolved with lots of differences and it's survival of the fittest, blah, blah, blah. And if we're going to take charge of our evolution, that means we need to educate individuals with an eye towards a managed society. And guess who's going to be the managers? Not you and me, folks. It's going to be the elites. So I'm going to wrap this up because it's getting a little bit later than I wanted. Let me find the quote here. Here we go. And I know that I am leaving a lot of questions unanswered in this. It has already been 40 minutes. I could talk for hours about any one of these individuals. This has been an area of intense study for me. Blah blah blah. But I'm going to wrap it up with this quote. So, this is in one of the essays. I have the book that has the essay. It was actually a speech, I believe. But just pay attention to this. The increasing complexity of modern societies demands an increasing number of men and women of great ability and high competence to run them. It should be a prime duty of our educationalists to meet this demand. So, in other words, he wants a sorting. So, yeah, so much to say about Julian Huxley. You should go Google him. So the next time I talk to him, you have some idea. This is not just some guy on the fringes. This was mainstream technocrat dude. He like formed helped form the United Nations and agencies within it. This is a big dog. Anyway, he wants the education system to sort out the people with higher competency from the people with less. And he made sure that he did his best to ensure that our education systems were designed just so that the people who were really smart, according to them, would rise to the top, and the rest of us would go into labor jobs of various sorts, et cetera, et cetera. And if you ever study how the difference between how rich people send their kids to school and how the rest of us send our kids to school, you will know exactly what I mean. And here he says genetics. Oops, let's go over here. Genetics and education must join hands. Well, as one of the founders of the British Eugenics Society, I wonder what he means by genetics here. Hmm. And here it says, um, we have to catch the geniuses and give them the education designed to help them permit their full capacities to the full. So, in other words, if we can fast forward 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the people of this mindset have made sure that the education that the average person receives is different than the education that the technocrats receive, the people who they call geniuses. So, are you so sure? I mean, which camp are you in? Did you go to Yale? Did you go to one of these private academies that only the rich people can afford to send people to? Or did you go to a public school, or a private school, but not a necessarily a wealthy one? If so, if you went to a regular school, then it's very possible that the things they taught you are not the things that are actually really important. They have not taught you the things that um, are critical to how this country actually operates. Look at what he has. Look what he says. Failure to do this will lead to a rundown of national efficiency and national achievement. Trust me, he did not entrust this duty to the peons like you and me. No, 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 no. Only the top notch, or was it again? The geniuses and top people. So anyway, yeah, he knows what this is going to lead to. Educationalists will be accused of encouraging an elite and adding new class differences that must be faced. Nature is not egalitarian, there's social Darwinism. Societies must always be stratified in some way, whether you call them elite, whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you agree with that. But um, I don't agree with that. But the thing is, you would never know this, right? Unless you went digging, unless you went and found out who has been designing and writing the curriculum for the school system and the colleges for the last 40 or 50 years, you would not know that the people who that they deemed to be the elites, that what they learned was different than what the rest of us learned. That what they were wanting to do was to create a group of people who would be the slave masters, and the rest of us would be basically the slaves. And the trick, the task that they set before the slave masters, if we can go back, was to find a way to get the rest of us to love our servitude, and that's where we're at right now. We're well past the 1950s. This is thoroughly in motion as we speak. The There have been some things that have occurred to serve as obstacles to what the slave masters wanted to do. For example, they did not anticipate the internet and the at least initial democratization of information and access to knowledge, which they have been trying to get rid of ever since. There have been some things that have slowed them down, but it's basically been a steady march, and they still have the schools, they have the colleges. And so, my question to you, if you've hung out this long, is um, are you so sure that you are a free person in this scenario, or are you one of those persons that they just want to um, become content uh, with what is happening to you? Are you just one of the persons they want to love their servitude? Because if you are, maybe you should not do that. I mean, maybe you don't care. Maybe you figure you're a dumb person. Maybe you think you're stupid. You go online and find lots of people who seem to fit that bill and seem to actually do love their servitude. I'm not going to get into that too much, but chances are, if you're watching this channel at least, that you find this attitude highly offensive. Well, good, but specifically, what viewpoints and attitudes are the ones that belong to those who love their servitude? Are you so sure that you do not have them? you should find out. And the only way to find out is to dig deep into what the people who built these institutions, like the public schools and the education system and the medical establishment, blah, 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 what they started. And it's going to be pretty eye opening. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more, quite a bit more, actually. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to go into this um, channel to begin with. It's, yeah, I have a lot to say. It's getting late. It's 15 minutes in. Let me just check. See. Okay, nothing, no questions there. No questions there. Okay, so we're going to end it here and call it a night. And I will be back if you happen to watch this all the way to the end. I thank you for doing so. Um, yeah, we'll just make it. Hey, go find me on Telegram. I don't have a lot of people following me on Telegram yet, and to make sure that I can speak freely and untethered, I need to have that avenue, and I hope that you'll join me there. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, that's it. Thank you. All right, I'm ending this now.